Good morning and welcome to BBOC Live. It's 10:30 a.m. Eastern, and this is the Week 9 college football betting preview. I'm Stuckey, and joining me, as always, my fellow BBOC co-hosts, Colin Wilson, Mike Calabrese, and of course, the one and only Mr. Brett McMurphy. Have a lot to get to today, as always. Give out our two best bets, talk a little marquee matchup in prime time between Texas A&M and LSU. We'll build our weekly round robin moneyline parlay, and we'll get Mr. Johnny Manziel's Hail Mary pick of the week. Before we get started here, if you do want access to all of Action's pro projections, make sure to sign up for our annual subscription that is currently on sale. Access includes exclusive player prop picks from Sean Kerner and other members of the Action Analytics team. You also get access to exclusive expert articles, our best spread, money line, and total bets, and real ticket money percentages. To sign up, visit actionnetwork.com/pro today and use code BBOC20 at sign up. One more time, that's BBOC20 at sign up for $20 off. All right, good stuff there. Before we jump into our first best bets, by the way, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe and like button. Really helps us out on our new BBOC channel. We also do record part of our weekly podcast there every Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern. Brett, the people are asking, are you now going to have Boise in your college football playoff projections on Monday?
Not until Army loses. No, I'm not.
Army on a bye, so you're going to get
Army on a bye. Yeah.
the Boise hater
If
comments
Na
are
but if
coming for you
Navy if
again.
Navy beats Notre Dame, I'll put Navy in front of Army though.
Colin,
Yeah.
how was your Friday night? Thanks for almost jinxing my BC bet by talking about how great of a handicap I had, and then they almost gave up like 38 straight points to blow the cover.
Yeah, Friday Night Lights actually paid off for Colin Wilson because there's been weeks and weeks of heartbreak going on with my picks. But Boise gets to the window, crosses all the numbers. Pretty choppy game offensively. You would expect more points out of those two teams. You would have expected to see more Ashton Genty, although Barry Odom sold out the defense, load the box, take everything away. And I think what's funny, Stuck, is Calabrese and we did the Mountain West preseason preview back in July. And the hate on Boise State was Malachi Nelson cannot be the quarterback of this Boise State team. And here we are with Maddox Madsen running for touchdowns, throwing for touchdowns, looking like an all-star last night against UNLV. So a very impressive game from Boise. If I was making out my college football playoff bracket, I would have Boise in as the 12th seed.
Uh-oh, that means they're cursed now. I will say, UNLV tried to sell out to take away Genty. He's still got his numbers, but a modest day for his standards. And really the difference, I mean, the Boise pressure, creating negative plays, that's what their defense does, was a big factor. But I think Maddox Madsen had a really good game, made the throws when necessary that were there off of play action. And, I thought Danielson out-coached Odom as well. Odom, some bad clock management again, timeout management. Danielson being aggressive, going for those fourth downs early in the game, or I should say in the first half, I think really paid off. Calabrese, I think you were on the Revs, but you were also impressed with Madsen.
I was. I mean, essentially, you nailed it in terms of what Boise did or UNLV did defensively against him, just daring him to beat cover 1 and cover 0. And he was able to do it. And he was able to extend plays with his legs. If he plays like that, not only are they going to make the college football playoff, but they're going to be a difficult out no matter who they draw. Additionally, when it comes to Odom, he's got to go to time management prison, the James Franklin cell block, because to not understand at the end of the game, demanding that they overturn the 4th and inches and, a first down, 4th and inches, should they measure, should they not measure? He just clearly doesn't understand that it hurt them for it to be a 4th and inches and then a quarterback sneak wins Boise the game. He clearly just didn't understand that, and neither did the announcers. I think we just need to get everybody playing college football 25 because that's a clear situation where you want to have the new set of downs, so at least you have an opportunity with one timeout in your back pocket to get a stop and get the ball back, but apparently he doesn't understand that.
Yeah, it's been an issue all year long. But let's get into our first bets.
Let's mention this before we go on. For Friday night, you and I talked on the podcast about Rutgers playing at 11 p.m. and then Schiano releases a quote, "I don't want to be making big decisions at 2:30 in the morning." Right? So keep that in mind, feather in the cap for next year when Rutgers travels out to the West Coast again to play an 11 p.m. game on their clock. Fade City. That was embarrassing last night.
Who was up? Who stayed up for the end? I was up.
What
No.
was the lead? Over to almost
saw it.
30 at some point? Yeah.
2:55 it ended. 2:55 Eastern. I stayed up, sicko mode. I can't go to sleep until didn't really sleep last night, but I can never turn the TV off until the last game is over. Doesn't matter what it is, doesn't matter if you don't have money on it. Someone's always sweating something somewhere. Someone was tweeting at me like 3 a.m. They're like, I need Rutgers to close out a tease that I have, which is like, so like teaser numbers were still a lot. So yeah, I've always been like that. Maybe one day I'll grow up. All right, let's get to our first best bets. For what it's worth, I'm going for 4 straight sweeps after a rough 2-week stretch where I went 0 for 2 weeks in a row. Going 2-0 3 straight weeks. Let's kick things off with some Sparty against Michigan. I don't know how many times I got to say it. Michigan stinks, people. I mean, they're just a bad football team. Their defense, I think, is a bit overrated. Their offense can't move the ball. They don't know who they are. They change quarterbacks every week. Apparently, they're going to be rotating Davis Warren and Alex Orji in this game. The receivers can't get separation. Michigan State, what can they do well? Defend the run. It's the reason I was on them against Iowa last week. It's the only thing Michigan can do well on offense is try to run the ball. Michigan State can slow that down. These two teams are just headed in opposite directions after the bye. Aiden Childs starting to get a better handle on that offense. Jonathan Smith, huge coaching advantage here for Sparty. I'm sure they had this game circled. They were embarrassed 49-0 last year against their in-state rival on their home field. And an important factor here is, I mean, number one, you're catching, over a field goal with a super low total. But Jonathan Smith's been a wizard in the scripted portion of games. He can get Michigan State a quick score too early. I mean, that could be enough against this anemic Michigan offense. I like Sparty with the points. Michigan is just not a team that I want to get anywhere near as a favorite. So give me Spartans. Colin, where you headed?
Yeah, I'm going to take over 1.5 fights at the 50-yard line and in the tunnel at that game. Not
a bad bet.
I'm going to fade a team that I absolutely have been in love with all year. I'm going to fade SMU here. I'm going to go with Duke plus the points. There's a really big piece of this SMU offense that is missing top target. Tight end RJ Maryland is done for the season. The next tight end up, Matthew Hibner, has 7 targets this season. And not only that, Kevin Jennings just throws to the slot, just spams the slot over the middle. And that was what RJ Maryland did. There is no other wide receiver or tight end or any kind of target on this SMU offense that averages more than 2 yards per route run, which is what our bar is to be an explosive target wide receiver tight end. So now SMU loses their biggest explosive component, and Duke's defense is top 5 nationally in defending pass explosives. So it's going to be tough for SMU. They're going to have to be methodical. There's going to be 10-play drives for them to get into scoring position. So points are not going to come as easy today for SMU in their new world without their top target. And you go to the other side of the ball, SMU has been living on havoc all year with their defense. Not a bad thing, but the problem is the pass rush is the best aspect of them. Duke's offensive line can absolutely neutralize that, a top 20 pass blocking grade. They do not let Malik Murphy get pressure. Duke's had some problems getting down the field too. Probably under is a good bet here, but I'm going to say Duke and the points against SMU and this new offense that they've got to figure it out.
Yeah, I would say I like the under here too, which would make the points more intriguing. Maryland is a big loss, and SMU has some turnover regression coming. They're in that group of teams that has been extremely fortunate. Teams like BYU that have just been turnover, takeaway, points off turnover merchants all season long. Regression probably coming at some point. Brett, word on the street is you're trying to take over my title as the new Pavia Whisperer.
See, Stuck, you're mistaken. I do like Vanderbilt plus, I think 18 is the last number I saw. I know you call yourself the self-proclaimed Pavia Whisperer. Jerry Kill and I go back a long, long time, probably before you even were born. He actually still owes me a truck last year when the Aggies got to a bowl game. We can all grab hands and root together for the Commodores. Last 2 seasons with Diego Pavia and Jerry Kill at New Mexico State and Vandy, they are 5-1 against the spread, but when getting more than 10 points, with 4 outright wins against Auburn, Alabama, Virginia Tech, and Kentucky. And yeah, I love Diego. I love Jerry Kill. They will eat up the clock, shorten possessions. The knee-jerk reaction here, I think for most people is, oh, wow, Texas is coming off a loss. They're going to come out motivated, angry. They'll pay back for Vanderbilt. Wrong, wrong, and wrong. That's just the opposite of what happens. If you look at top power conference teams this year, and historically, teams that lose their first game after the month of October, the following game they fail to cover. That's happened 3 times already this year. Big teams, Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee. The week after losing that first game, they all failed to cover the following week by an average of 10 points. The line's 18. Give me the Commodores to make it 0-4 in that situation. Go Vandy, go Diego.
Yeah, I like this as well. Just follow the formula. Vandy's an SEC Service Academy team. Take them as a double-digit dog, fade them as a double-digit favorite. Not only is Diego 4-1 against the spread, 5-0 against the spread as a double-digit dog, and 4-1 straight up. That one loss was in overtime, by the way, to Missouri. He's covering by 20 points per game. And you mentioned, the big teams off of big losses. If you want a bigger sample size, top 20 teams the week after losing a top 20 matchup are only about 43% against the spread, even worse as double-digit favorites. So I agree that angry narrative, usually I think it works the other way, and the team actually might come out a bit flat. Texas also has a key offensive and defensive starter that will miss this game. I like the Doors as well. And so Brett, the new Jerry Kill whisperer. Calabrese, where you headed?
Well, according to you, Stuck, I'm third on the Pavia power rankings for this podcast. I do think I'm the only one who watched his Volcano Vista High School huddle highlights, as well as his work at New Mexico Military Institute, but that's an argument for a separate time. I'm going to go over in this AAC game, 69.5. This number's been on the move all week. I'd play it all the way up to 71 because North Texas is the half team of college football. And by that, I mean a phenomenal offense and a horrific defense. The mean green against FBS opponents this year, overs are cashing every single time. 6-0, besting the closing total by 17 points per game. And when I say half team, they are top 6 in scoring and total offense and bottom 10 in the same defensive metrics. And the game within the game here is North Texas cannot get to the quarterback. They're 132nd in pass rush per PFF. And when Tulane protects Mensa, good things happen. In the 4 games when he faced 7 or fewer pressures, the offense has averaged 52 points per game. In the other 3 games, the pressures doubled up to 14. The scoring dipped to 23. So I think both of these teams have the potential to go for 40 points here. So the fact of the matter is 10 touchdowns is not scaring me away. I'm going over in this AAC shootout.
Rooting for points there. I agree. That should be an absolute shootout there in Denton, Texas. I'm also on some mean green. So hopefully it's just a back and forth affair throughout, but good stuff on the first best bets. It's time to transition to the marquee matchup of the day between LSU and Texas A&M. A lot on the line here, not only in regards to the SEC standings. Both these teams sit alone in first place, undefeated, bit of a surprise, but also for the college football playoff. The winner of this game will be in really good position to get there when it's all said and done. Before we share our thoughts, I spoke with Texas A&M alum Johnny Manziel on his thoughts. For what it's worth, SEC underdogs have been just cashing at a very high clip this season. Texas A&M, small home favorite. Johnny, do they get it done in College Station?
Yeah, I'm going to take my Aggies money line. I think this is a game that they've seen over the last couple of weeks, really what their blueprint is and what they want to do offensively. Look, you're going to have to run the ball against the good LSU defense, but, I think this is something they're capable of doing. Luckily, you get this game at home. This game scares me a little bit with how gritty and just, LSU seems to just watching that game they had against Ole Miss a couple weeks ago, they seem to battle, they seem to fight and find a way to get it done offensively, even if it's not always pretty. So I think this is a game A&M is going to have to be really, really physical on the defensive line, and a game they're going to have to run the ball. This is another thing. This Texas A&M team, it has to, begin and end in the trenches. If they don't get it done up front, don't get the run game going, I'll definitely be a little bit worried. But I think this is something they can do on Saturday night.
Thanks, Johnny. For me, this is a pure pass. I'll be rooting for Texas A&M. I have Texas A&M futures to make the college football playoff. I can't figure out which Texas A&M is going to show up. They've looked great. They've looked bad. Both these teams I had questions about, and at their peak, they've looked great, but they've also looked very vulnerable. Both teams lost their opener, have won every game since. LSU looked much better against Arkansas than Texas A&M did, but you could also argue LSU could be sitting here with 3 losses. Should have lost to South Carolina, if not for that SEC ref show. And really, as someone who bet them against Ole Miss, they should have lost that game. I mean, they needed a couple mini miracles to come back and force overtime in that game and some Ole Miss injuries. So this is a really tough game for me to crack. I'll sit back and I'm going to root for the Aggies to get it done. By the way, no surprise that Johnny likes A&M. Colin, I know you have some early LSU, which I agree with. I think taking the 3.5 was probably the smart move there. Now this is trended, I mean, obviously closer to pick, but you're going to make a case for the total.
Yeah, I mean, everybody, pricing means everything. Market entry means everything. And on Sunday, this line was LSU plus 3.5. That's a good number. LSU plus 2.5, when I wrote it up for action on Tuesday, still a good number. I power rated this Texas A&M -1. Where we're at right now, I don't think there's any value on either side. So for this show, let's pivot over to where I think on the total, which is the under. Both these defenses are top 10 in defensive havoc. Both these defenses are top 30 in defensive finishing drives. Even if you get into scoring position, they're pretty good at taking the ball away and limiting you from getting points. The best quarterback in this game is going to be Garrett Nussmeier. He's going to challenge the middle of the Texas A&M defense. You're just not going to be able to get anything over this nickel set that Mike Elko has. And Garrett Nussmeier has to work in a crowded pocket with a heavy pass rush coming in from Texas A&M. The only place for him to go is in the middle. I think he hits Aaron Anderson a lot out of the slot. I think Aaron Anderson has a chance to go over his receiving props, but no explosives and a methodical grind to get into scoring position. You go to the other side of the ball, and Connor Weigman, 4 turnover-worthy plays against Mississippi State. The accuracy hasn't been there. Elko talked at length about the issues with accuracy, timing. Weigman is just not there right now. So let's go under 55. 54, and that is the biggest key in all of college football total. So if you have 54.5 at your own shop, it's not bad to go up to -120 on the key of 55.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it. LSU has not been an explosive offense. Texas A&M, the structure of their defense generally does a good job of limiting explosives. So it's going to force LSU to methodically drive the field. Relying on Nussmeier has been pretty efficient and pretty good in doing so. The key is, can Texas A&M get pressure and get LSU behind the sticks and create negative plays? Nussmeier's done a good job of avoiding sacks, and they do have a really good offensive line, especially in pass protection. But Texas A&M has a very good defensive line. Who wins that battle in the trenches? I think that's going to decide when LSU has the ball. When Texas A&M has the ball, what Wegman do you get? You get the good one? You get the bad one? You get the mediocre one? If you know that, you probably know the winner. Brett, before I know that you don't like anything here, but I'll get your quick thoughts. But Calabrese, you're going oppo of Colin here.
I'm going oppo, and I think it really comes down to, on the LSU side of things, Caden Durham gives this offense punch in a brand new way. Nussmeier called him lightning in a bottle, the freshman out of Duncanville, Texas. And if he had enrolled early, I think he would have been the starter from day one, and this offensive outlook and their metrics would be a lot stronger. But he honored his commitment to the track and field team at his high school. They ended up winning a state championship there. So he comes in the fall, wins this job, and basically since he's taken over as their top back, he's been the explosive guy. He had 3 plays of 15 yards or more against South Carolina. He exploded for 2 plays from scrimmage over 70 yards against South Alabama, and crosses over 100 total yards on the ground against Arkansas. And LSU was already dangerous offensively, but now that Nuss has some balance, that deep receiving core has an opportunity to pop downfield. He has been clutch. He's up to 12th in QBR this year, but when you really zero in on his downfield passing 20 yards or deeper, he has a 7-to-1 big time throw to turnover worthy throw ratio. That's the 3rd best of Power 4 quarterbacks in the entire country, only trailing Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. And then the Aggies, I agree with the assessment of their quarterback play, but in terms of what they've been able to do on the ground, they're 12th in rush rate and 12th in yards per game on the ground. And the tape would tell you that LSU can be bullied a bit in the box. You can move their defenders in the run game. We saw it against Ole Miss. They went for 180 on the ground, and South Carolina killed them on the ground with Rocket Sanders. So I think if everything goes right, we end up with a game where at least one of these 2 teams make it into the 30s, and that's why I'm going over this number. It has been moving up. I wouldn't play it at 55, but at 54, 54.5, I'll go over.
Brett, I know you're passing like me, but do you have any thoughts you want to share on this game?
No, I just think Stuck, we got a 12-team playoff. I think this is an elimination game. I don't think the loser's out of the playoff.
Yeah, I just still think they have a shot. I mean, if LSU goes 10-2,
You got to
beats
win out. It's
Alabama,
unlikely. Yeah.
yeah, Texas A&M wins out, they beat Texas. I still think they'll have a shot, but winner is in a really good spot. So yeah, just a massive game. I would say, thinking about the schedule, Alabama, Missouri, that's an elimination game, right? That's I'm trying to think if there's any other obvious ones.
Texas A&M would be. I think Stuck. I think this is a really good teaching moment for everybody. The team that loses this, we talked about this on the pod. The team that loses this game is going to have a nice juicy number to make the playoff. But what you have to do is take the remaining schedule, take the probabilities of sweeping that, and that's what the market price should be. So be careful when you're shopping tomorrow on the loser of this game to make the playoff, because someone's going to sweep the SEC November schedule.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
But enough about Vanderbilt.
New BCS. We'll talk about futures odds. I would say Indiana might be an elimination game if they lose to Washington. Now, they could still beat Ohio State, but assuming that they're not going to beat Ohio State, I think they need to get to 11 wins to get in. So, yeah, I think that's pretty much it across the board. But good stuff there. Looking forward to that one in primetime. Should be an awesome environment. But let's move on to our weekly round robin moneyline parlay. Colin, kick us off with an anchor.
I'm not going to go too deep into this because Brett's going to talk about it, but Central Florida is back, baby. That inside zone read is powerful. BYU can't defend it. Welcome to the bounce house. Let's go with the night. Back on the Gus Malzahn bus.
Yeah, Ja'Cory Brown is the man for the job, and BYU can't stop the run. The BYU turnover luck, late game luck, eventually going to run out here. I like UCF as well. Give me Houston. Utah can't move the ball. I mean, that offense is a hard watch. Home dog, what's this total going to close at 30, 35? Give me the Cougs.
Yeah, Akron, we're going to go on the money line here. That number has been falling all week. Another market entry that was at 5 down to 3, 2.5, 2. It's falling for a reason. First off, Eastern Michigan is a fraud. Their box scores the last 2 games are complete frauds. I think they're +9 in turnovers over the last 3 games. Akron had 500 yards of offense. Who? The Zips? Let's take them on the money line today.
Let's go with Cincy. This price is just way too rich. Colorado has been better, but against who? I mean, yeah, their defense is playing better. They're running the ball a bit better, but some of the teams that they've played have had injuries, and I just think they're getting too rich here. Cincy's been good. I mean, people don't give Cincy any respect, but they should have beat Pitt, who's undefeated. They blew a double-digit lead late, and they arguably should have beat Texas Tech on the road. If not, I mean, they lost by 3 in a coin flip game, and all their running backs got hurt. This team could easily be undefeated. I think Cincy has a really good shot tonight in Boulder. Finish this up.
Yeah, we're going to stay in the MAC here. I think this game is a complete perception game. Toledo is not that good. They are not the brand name in the MAC anymore. A lot of us have Bowling Green futures 7-1 from the preseason. This is the game that they're going to have. So if you didn't get a preseason future on Bowling Green, let this money line ticket serve as one, because the Toledo win is something that has to happen.
I like this one. Yeah, I'm on BG. I'm on Akron. I'm on UCF. Your 3 picks. Throw in Houston and Cincy. And that is our week 9 round robin. Let's move on to our second best bets of the day. I'll kick things off. I'm going to go with Kansas, Rock Chalk. I think this is too many points at Kansas State. Kansas has been one of the unluckiest teams in the country. Came out of the bye like gangbusters and rolled Houston. I think that's a really good sign for where they're at mentally. Still have a really good coach in Lance Leipold. This offense can score. Daniels has looked healthy, has cleaned up the mistakes. So I think that this team's trending in the right direction. Now, is their defense going to get many stops? Not so sure. Their run defense is very questionable, but maybe Avery Johnson isn't going to run as much. He got that injury against Colorado. No rush attempts last week against West Virginia. So, and that's an area where Kansas has really struggled to defend mobile quarterbacks. So if he's not running as much, that does help Kansas. But I'm not fully sold on this Kansas State defense, and they've benefited from some injuries. I mean, last week against West Virginia, you had turnovers, you had running backs, offensive linemen, quarterbacks go down against them. So I like Kansas here to keep it close in a rivalry. The Sunflower Showdown has been dominated by Kansas State, but I think Kansas can stay within 10 here. Colin, where are you going for your final best bet?
It'd certainly be a spicy new BCS if Kansas State lost this one outright after my bracket pick last week. I am going to go with probably the most uncomfortable.
Oh yeah, that's my main reasoning. You picked Kansas State to go to the college
Right.
football. I should have just my best bet's Kansas money line.
I am going to go to a very uncomfortable play. I'm going to take Wisconsin plus 6.5 against Penn State, traveling into Camp Randall here. Penn State has chronic troubles the week before playing Ohio State. This is a really good spot for Wisconsin. The last time Penn State came to Camp Randall and won by more than a touchdown was 2007. But if you go and look at the games that Penn State has played before Ohio State, they lost to a 5-7 Illinois team in 2022. They lost this game in 2020 to Indiana. Just struggles chronically before this in the James Franklin era. You say, what's going on with this Wisconsin offense right now? Tawi Walker has been electric for Wisconsin the last two games. You can say what you want about the level of competition, the defenses they played, but it's the heavy outside zone that has got Tawi Walker just running like crazy. 324 yards the last two games against Rutgers and Northwestern. When you go and look at what Penn State does defensively against certain run concepts, they're elite against everything. Now, I could argue that their schedule of offense they played isn't very good, but they've been elite against every run concept except for one, and that's outside zone. They've just been mid FBS success rate against that, and that's exactly what Wisconsin runs. And if you need further proof of that, Penn State went out to USC. USC averaged 8.4 yards per play on the ground in 23 rushing attempts. I don't know what's going on with this Penn State on outside zone, but it's going to get exposed again today.
Rolling with the Badgers at home. Brett, we've already hinted at this one. Colin and I both like UCF, and that's where you're headed for your second best bet.
Yeah, Stuck, you mentioned Kansas, the nation's unluckiest team. Well, the luckiest team is BYU. BYU's coming off a last-second miracle revenge win against Oklahoma State last week. And on deck, they have the holy war with Utah. This is a tough scheduling spot. Now you have undefeated, nationally ranked BYU as an underdog at a 4-loss UCF team. Something smells fishy here. BYU has been outgained in 3 of their wins. They've been very fortunate with defensive touchdowns, special teams touchdowns. Very fortunate to be undefeated here. Oklahoma State last week showed the formula how to beat BYU, to shred the defense with a strong running game and a running quarterback, more specifically. That's exactly what UCF has. That is their strength now that they put KJ Jefferson out the pasture. Speaking of Oklahoma State, the Cowboys were in a similar situation to BYU this year. Last year, Oklahoma State came into UCF off a big win. And you look up ugly in the dictionary, you'll see my picture, and next to that, you'll see the Oklahoma State result against UCF. They got blown out. I think UCF is primed for a big win here to stop a 4-game losing streak. Add all that together. Plus, oh, by the way, did I mention it's 83 down here? And humidity is going to be about 50%. Horrible spot for BYU. UCF gets right and gets back trying to get to a bowl game.
The secret lives of Mormon wives goes down today, Stuck.
I agree. I was on UCF in that game against Oak State. I think what was the final? 45-3, I think.
They just scored again. I think it was 55-3. Yeah.
Yeah, that was over before it started. Calabrese, you're going to the group of 5 ranks as usual. Where you headed for your final best bet?
Well, first off, I think that was the best handicap Brett's had the entire season. That was so thorough. I'm going to give him another pat on the back because he broke the news that Goose Crowder for Troy is out for the season. Troy's Goose is cooked offensively. PFF already rated this offense 120th overall, and it's even worse with Caldwell and Kilcrease under center. They take way too many sacks. They turn the ball over. They're just a walking turnover as a tandem. And this is a revenge spot for Arkansas State. Troy drilled this team 37-3 last year. But since then, Troy lost its quarterback to graduation, NFL-bound running back in Vidal, its top 3 pass catchers, and John Summerall leaves as their head coach. Their replacement in Parker has just not been able to get it done. This Troy team is a husk of what they were last year. And I still love Arkansas State's ceiling offensively with Rayner, Cross, Rucker, Jackson. They put it all together last week, played a virtually perfect game, 44 points, 467 total yards, 0 turnovers against Southern Miss. I understand that Southern Miss is a team that just fired their head coach, and for good reason, but I think Troy is basically the bottom of the barrel in the Sun Belt as well, which is strange to say after winning so many games across the last 4 seasons. But Arkansas State is a team that I think has a chance to win out. They were 3-3. They're now 4-3. In 2 weeks, they play Louisiana. If they win that game as well, I think they have a puncher's chance to make the Sun Belt title game. So I'm going to continue to ride Butch Jones here. I would lay this all the way up to 10, so below the key number. And in some spots right now, it's actually just a touchdown. I love Arkansas State in this spot.
Calvary's back to the Red Wolves for a second straight week after they treated you well last week. Good stuff, gentlemen. But before we get out of here, one final order of business. It's time for Mr. Manziel's Hail Mary pick of the week. Johnny, you wanted to go with Georgia last week. We kind of bullied you into going with a little bit of a longer shot. You went with Nebraska. I also had Nebraska. Didn't work out too well. So we'll give you a split because Georgia was a no-doubter. But where are you headed for week 9?
I'm headed to my Oklahoma State team. They've been, a little banged up, didn't have quite the season they wanted to have so far, but last week really got into a barn burner with BYU in a game that they really should have probably won up into the last, couple seconds of that game. They got Alan Bowman coming back, a guy who was their starter to start the year. So I think this is a game that they have to, really just get back on track. This hasn't been the season that they've wanted, but, I'm taking Oklahoma State this week and see if they can't get a win against Baylor.
All right, thanks, Johnny. A couple people, we listened to the chat. We're asking for thoughts on Navy, Notre Dame, Calabrese, and Colin, you wanted to share some thoughts. Calabrese, I'll let you go first. What do you got?
Yeah, I think what's interesting, Colin brought it up earlier, talking about Penn State and the nitty-gritty in terms of what they defend and what they struggle to defend. When you look at power and counter defense, Notre Dame is barely inside of the top 100. That's a bit of a bread and butter component of this Navy offense. And the wing T under Drew Cronick, what he's been able to fold into their triple option offense, misdirection, sleight of hand with the football, they've been just breaking people wide open in the second and third levels of defenses all season long. I like Eli Heidenreich to have a big game. With the exception of last week, he's had at least a gain of 39 yards, either on the ground or through the air this season in every one of Navy's, matchups this season. So I just see Navy, at least for the first half, hanging around. I think that's the best play on the board. Take the points in the first half against the Fighting Irish. And also, I just think Notre Dame has beefed themselves up in terms of perception a little bit on a schedule that just doesn't look all that great, to be honest. Beating Stanford, beating Louisville, Georgia Tech with a backup quarterback, color me unimpressed with what Notre Dame has done against an underwhelming schedule. Whereas I understand that Navy, they get hammered for their weak schedule, but in their biggest game of the year, they dropped 56 points on Memphis. So I think there's an opportunity for them to hang around in this game, certainly in the first half. I think that's where the value is.
Colin, what do you want to share?
Yeah, same game script here. Marcus Freeman came out and said, we cannot simulate the speed of this Navy offense in practice. So what does that mean from a game script? That means Navy, the first 3 series, is going to give Notre Dame's defense lots of trouble on fullback dive, edge contain, play action pass. And then at some point, Notre Dame's going to make adjustments, flip the script, and Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price are going to run crazy on a Navy defense that's got a 38% success rate against inside zone. It's going to be bad. Notre Dame's going to be able to run at will. So yeah, Navy comes out hot. At some point it clicks. Notre Dame ends up covering this number, but you can expect a live wager coming in on the Irish during the game from me.
Yeah, I think the Navy defense is in trouble here. They got to create turnovers. That's pretty much their only shot. I mean, their defense grades out poorly, and they've played, if you adjust for opponent. And, they're one opponent that they've played, and they've been extremely fortunate. What I'm worried about Navy is their regression. Yeah, they've been so fortunate in turnovers, red zone, you name it. The one offense they play with the Pulse, Memphis, put up close to 700 yards of total offense. So that's what I would be a bit concerned about. But I do agree with Calabrese. I think this Navy offense can hit them early with the surprise factor. You might get a few even extra wrinkles for this game. One of the benefits of having an easy schedule and blowing out a lot of teams is you don't have to show a lot of this new modified triple option, Delaware wing T spread option hybrid. So should be a fascinating one kicking off at noon. That'll do it for us. One final ad read. And a reminder, if you want access to all of Action's pro projections, make sure to sign up for our annual subscription that is currently on sale. Access includes exclusive player prop picks from Sean Kerner and other members of the Action Analytics team. You also get access to exclusive expert articles, our best spread, money line, and total bets and real ticket money percentages. To sign up, visit actionnetwork.com/pro today and use code BBOC20 at sign up. One more time, that's BBOC20 at sign up for $20 off. Thank you to Colin, Mike, and Brett for joining me. Thanks to our producers on the back end. Most importantly, thanks to all of you for tuning in. One final reminder, make sure you hit that subscribe, like button. 959 bad beat for the voicemail. Call, yell at me, Colin, all you want. We'll have our recap show. It'll be out Monday morning. New BCS. We'll talk a little futures and the weekend that was on Tuesday. Group of 5 guys, Mike and Mike, will be back midweek. Colin and I for the Week 10. Season is flying by. Week 10 college football betting preview, which will be out on Thursday. And then, as always, same time every Saturday, 10:30 a.m. Eastern, for the live show all the way through College Basketball National Championship. Thanks for tuning in. Good luck on all of your wagers today, and we'll see y'all next week. Cheers.